Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Today's a great day to talk about leadership and how leadership takes different forms, especially as I try to recover from a 9-hour drive home from Vermont watching the eclipse yesterday and spending with a person who's been around me most of my life, mentoring me in different aspects of things that he has found his expertise throughout life, and shared one of his as an early astronomer in his life, teaching me everything I need to know about what I had to learn yesterday while watching this eclipse. So today we're going to share stories about how mentoring is not only solved complex problems, but has charted paths of new ways of leadership. We'll bring key components of how mentorship affects our lives in the office, out of the office. Maybe your children, you mentor them, maybe your colleagues, maybe your employees, but how much do you get from being a mentor, and how does it really make you feel personally? I feel that I've gotten more out of being a mentor than I ever have given by mentoring someone else. But my hope today is that we all emerge with new perspectives on how to lead and aspire across these generational lines with 5 generations of people in the workforce currently, and how we create a future where every leader is also a mentor and every mentor is a lifelong learner. So if you're interested in being a mentor, I do want to recommend a company called TechPack. They're a group of CIO leaders and professionals in IT that are on a mission to amplify people and partnerships to reduce digital divide and pursue to divide and pursue representative digitally throughout the technology community by the end of the decade. Our own 𝗦𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗶 is now signed up to be a mentor, and I advise you to take a strong look at it if you're interested in volunteering. So with that, I'd like to bring our first guest to the live today, and that's Scott 𝗬𝗏. Scott and I met at a New York CIO through Inspire Leadership, and Scott is, I would say he's a colleague, but Scott is a friend, and as we say, an Inspire family. Scott is at Cambridge, where he's the Vice President of Information Technology, leading the digital lead forward. He has 35 years of diverse experience under his belt, spanning IT, marketing, business development. Scott's a proven leader in the tech realm. Before Cambridge, he was at Merck, driving innovations for KEYTRUDA. Cancer therapy has touched many lives. Scott's also left his mark across various sectors, including Johnson & Johnson companies. Beyond his tech prowess, Scott's passion lies in mentoring, guiding professionals to realize their full potential. Scott, welcome.
Thanks, Robert. Glad to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Next, I'd like to bring a family member, 𝗦𝗰 𝗫𝗀. 𝗦𝗰, welcome. 𝗦𝗰 serves as Vice President of Revenue Enablement and Partnerships at Abrigo. Did I get that right?
Abrigo.
Abrigo. Damn it. We did that right before the session. Abrigo. They taps into his rich history in financial technology, spanning sales, enablement, and product management to boost revenue streams. Known for guiding financial institutions towards expansion, risk management, and operational scaling. 𝗦𝗰's leadership skills are second to none. He's embarked on Abrigo, journey, previously Sage work in 2016. After making his mark through leadership positions at various fintech companies, 𝗦𝗰 holds an MBA from Rutgers University. So with that, we're going to get started here today. Philip is supposed to be joining us. He's running a little bit late today, and hopefully be able to get to us before the show ends. So guys, welcome. What I'd like to start with, and I'd like you both to answer this question before we actually define what a mentor is. Scott, can you tell me, what do you get out of being a mentor?
You know, Robert, I think it really starts with paying it forward. You know, in my career, others have really given freely of their counsel. And so I really see this as a responsibility of leadership, you know, being able to share experiences for the benefit and growth of future leaders. And I would say, you know, what I get out of it is I learn a lot. I learn about what are the issues new leaders are facing. And really, are they truly new? Or is what they're sharing a blind spot for myself and my team? So every time I get into a mentoring session, I really understand whether something is in an experience area that I've had and can you know, provide feedback on, or is it something that, you know, I'm learning about for the first time, and maybe have the opportunity to understand and get some insight into.
Thanks, Scott. And without naming names, I know someone from the Inspire Leadership Academy who we mentored, and um, while I think they would feel they've gotten more from you. In our conversations, I know you feel that that's a genuine connection you've had, and you enjoy that more than I think they feel they've gotten from you as well. So I appreciate that insight. Thank you. So Nolan, how about you? What is being a mentor? What do you get out of being a mentor?
Yep. I've been a mentor to several people, and really, I find it very rewarding personally. I get a lot of satisfaction in helping to guide someone to achieve their career ambitions, personal growth, really kind of whatever they desire to get out of this relationship. And I really get the most satisfaction out of just helping others to succeed. Right? I believe it's the key to success in leadership, and it translates very, very well into mentoring others. And these relationships are so varied. It's always interesting to me, right? It's not just about the goals of the relationship, but the personality of the mentees, the people that you're working with, right? Trying to understand what really makes each one of those people tick it's a fun challenge to me. And Scott just mentioned the phrase blind spots. I love uncovering the blind spots of mentees. We all have them, right? So having someone that you're relying on to help you acknowledge them is great, and it's definitely kind of a nuanced approach, because with some people you can be very direct, very blunt. Other people kind of need to lead them very slowly to water. So just all of that put together, it's interesting to me. It's rewarding to me, and hope I get to continue doing that.
So guys, thank you, Nolan. Thank you. And as you know, we're live today, and there are people who will hopefully throw some questions in here. So anybody who's watching, please feel free to throw questions for Scott and Nolan here. My goal ultimately, as always, is to leave everyone with some practical things to take away that they can use in their relationship, either with their mentor in creating a stronger relationship, or with their mentee in order to give them tools and techniques to help better create that dynamic between the two of them. So we'll get through that hopefully within the rest of the show. And if they have any questions, please feel free to lean in here. And with that said, is to you guys, is mentoring a formal relationship? Is it informal? Has it played out throughout you guys in your careers, whether you were being mentored by someone or someone's been mentoring you? So Nolan, do you want to go first here?
Sure. I think it can be either formal or informal. In terms of the informal ones, right? Sometimes relationships just kind of just develop, right? I've never had a mentor that came as a result of some formal mentoring program that I was in. It just sort of evolved from working relationships that I've had with folks that tended to be more senior to me at the time. At Abrigo, we use a term that we call peer review. And essentially what it means is like, hey, peers or even those that might be less senior to someone on an org chart can provide direct, constructive feedback. And kind of prefacing that with, may I give you some peer feedback? It actually takes a lot of the awkwardness or potentially some of the strain out of what could be a challenging conversation. And in my experience, not just here at Brigo, but that peer-to-peer interactions sometimes takes on a life of its own, right? It evolves into regular conversations, can be very informal, like just over a coffee or a beer, but then sometimes actually evolves into kind of a mutual mentoring scenario where it's not just one person mentoring the other, but it's kind of a give and take sort of relationship that can be really beneficial.
Thanks, Nolan. Scott, how about you?
Yeah, I think a good mentoring relationship or a good mentorship is more than just a formal relationship. I think it's a connection to someone's aspirations and to their goals, and ultimately, really, I think it's to their purpose. And I say that because really each of us has to connect with our purpose, and that understanding of purpose, I think, is a real positive effect of exploring a mentoring relationship together. And it's really, I think, a way to connect in a human way to someone's successes as well as their struggles, and to lend an ear in some way, hopefully, some well-tuned advice that helps them to remove roadblocks along the way. I think mentoring also for me is something that gives me an energy boost. There's a book called The Power of Full Engagement by Jim Loehr and Tony Schwartz, and it talks about not being able to manage your time, but being able to manage your energy. And I think mentoring is an energy boost. Regardless of whether you're the mentor or mentee, it's a boost to your day. Just go through a mentoring discussion and think about it after that discussion. Think about how you feel. Inevitably, what I feel is a boost that, I took away something from that dialogue more than just the run of the day and what was happening in the work. It really was more than that. It was that connection.
The connection to me is really important, Scott. And I think mentoring comes, there's no delineation of lines. Scott and I both spent time in custom manufacturing. We've had dialogues where Scott's mentored me in situations, and I know I've had a reciprocal relationship with him in those types of situations. John, can you bring up Aaron's question again, if you don't mind, please? So Aaron Brown threw out a question that said, do you have any frameworks for mentoring, or what can you describe approach framework for mentoring? And that kind of humbled me for a minute, because Aaron is one of my mentors and has come to me when I needed him the most last year when I lost my mom. Aaron was one of the people one of the few people I told right away and reached out and sort of helped me through one of those things. And there are different frameworks that we might have, and I'm going to ask Aaron to sort of throw out a framework or two that he uses in the chat. But depending on the role that you have within the person you're mentoring or not, I've used things like, what's your superpower with people, depending whether it's professional personal mentoring, SMART goals. Do you guys have anything that you've used from a form? I know, Nolan, you brought up you guys had something at your company now with the peer networking, and Scott, I know you went through the Inspire. Is there anything that comes to your mind, you guys, from what you've used from a formal process in mentoring currently?
I'm happy to start there. Sure. I actually gave that some thought, just kind of preparing for today's conversations, because I never really sat down and did an introspective look about, like, well, how do I go about mentoring, right? I kind of did it. And so the notes I made to myself is that it's all about helping the person you're mentoring to, like, clarify, then plan, and then execute. So the clarifying piece is probably the most important aspect. Most mentees that I've worked with come to the relationship, whether it's formal or informal as that relationship develops, but they come with kind of a preconceived notion about what they think they want from that relationship. And with almost all of them, what I've found is that there's a lot of discovery that they need to do about themselves, right? So they need to, I really need to keep asking questions, especially why, right? And dig down into their motivations, and then figure out, like, hey, if their motivations don't align with the goals that they've expressed, then maybe we need to adjust the goals, right? Because your motivations are going to be your motivations. So kind of get that clarity, and that can take a while, whether you measure it in sessions or days or weeks or whatever. Then planning is just an ongoing discussion about how we're going to get to a destination if we've agreed on one. I try not to ever dictate a plan, but kind of broadly guide to really, more lead the process. I think mentee needs ownership of what is being asked of them to do, right? Of the process to get them to where they want to be. And it's just kind of my job to make sure they don't go off track. And then lastly, execute is like, hey, like, so here's the steps of the plan that we've agreed to, right? Let's prepare so that you can bring your best as you start executing on those various steps. Right. Also, keeping them focused and enthused is a big part of that, because it's a lot of work to do this the right way. It's rewarding, it's energizing, but kind of going to what Scott said before, it was interesting. He said, when he has a mentoring session, he leaves it really energized. I do overall, but I often leave those sessions and I'm exhausted, because you kind of get emotionally invested, right? And then you're just like, it's like dealing with a family member to a certain extent, and you just walk away like, okay, I need about 10 minutes to kind of regroup and move on with the rest of my day. But in any case, going back to where I was, I think those 3 steps: clarify, help plan, and then help execute, and that kind of is the arc of a given relationship.
Thanks, Don. How about you, Scott?
Yeah, I think what I would say is that while I don't have a formal framework that I go by, I think similarly to what Nolan was saying, I start with some, age-old, tried and true ways of going about the dialogue with the mentee. And I think the first is starting with purpose. I've said it before already, and I'll say it a lot during this conversation. Connecting with one's purpose is a deep introspective journey. And I don't know that a lot of professionals really think about that a lot. And maybe don't spend the time that necessary to understand how what they're doing today is connected to their purpose. So I start to help the mentee to understand and explore and get a real good connection to their purpose. And then I try to understand, well, how is that person the agent of their own career? And are they really getting to a place where they've got in marketing language, features and benefits of a good career that they can go back to and brand themselves with? And then we explore experiences together. What are they experiencing now? What are they struggling with? What are their good things that they can capitalize on? What are the strengths that they can capitalize on? And what are the areas where they struggle and they knowingly struggle? And where do they want to spend the time exercising, learnings from myself and or other articles or investments that I could bring into the conversation that would help them to really build upon that area where they want to develop.
By the way, I love that agent of your own career. I think that really, I hope that resonates with everybody. I mean, we've heard here before, Andrew Markstrom talked about the CEO of your life, agent of your career. I think people have to understand that it's really up to you to go out and make something of it. And, if you don't have a mentor, go find someone. If you are a mentor, give of yourself and what you get back. So can you guys discuss a time when the mentor relationship helped you do something, right? Where you saw the fruits of your labor, either solved the problem at work or helped you get over something, or, helped you see something within yourself? Is there a situation where you can identify where that mentoring relationship was impactful to you in your current or previous situations? Scott, can you start here?
Yeah, I mean, I've had the blessings of having a very long-standing mentoring relationship. And, I would say that, generically, what it's given me is that confidence to overcome what I think we all experience as leaders, which is that imposter syndrome, right? And, sometimes you think, am I really ready? Is this experience for me? Am I in over my head? And that mentoring relationship, I think, has given me on more than one occasion. My mentor's given me coaching on how to manage situations and has given me feedback from their own life experiences on how they managed the situation and what the result was for them. And while it might not have been the exact same situation, there certainly clearly was a takeaway. And they've given me something, to try something that I didn't believe that I was ready for, the courage to try something that I might not have been ready for. And I always feel like that mentor has my back. There's a person that I can go to all the time and know that they've got my back, whether I'm in a difficult situation, a complex situation, or even something that I just want to celebrate that I hope I got right. and I think that's the benefits of it.
I love that long-standing relationship too, Scott. So it's good that you keep that relationship going for this amount of time. So Nolan, how about you?
Yeah, I've got actually a very specific example that impacted me in a major way. It was with the former company, and I was trying to break into a senior leadership role and was having a lot of challenges with that, where I couldn't kind of take the next step. And we had a consultant come in who was kind of later in his career, had been very senior in some very large organizations. And he was leading training for the team, and my role was to help facilitate that training, right? And so as our relationship developed, the more we worked together, it kind of grew to the point that I was really leaning on him for a lot of advice and guidance. And he was aware of what I was doing and was invested in it. And very interestingly, so he coached me about how to have some multiple conversations with senior leaders in that company. And I actually came to the realization after I had those conversations that to make the move I wanted to make was probably not going to happen at that company, right? And that kind of solidified in my mind that, okay, it's time to move on. And I was able to move on. I was able to make that jump. And here I am today talking with you guys. So,
Well, we're happy you are.
yeah.
Oh, well, so Jack Barsky, if anyone doesn't know, longtime fan of the Institute. I've listened to Jack many times. Jack's such a great podcast. If you want to hear his history from KGB to CIO, I think I'm a big fan of Jack's. But this is a great question, right? With 5 generations of people in the workforce, right? How do you manage multi-generational teams? And mentoring comes into play there because people want to be heard differently, right? You know, I remember when I first started Fordham University, when Facebook first came out, people were like, well, what is this, right? And it was the Facebook back then. And people get communicated differently. So how do you guys bridge the generational gap, especially when you're mentoring people that as late in the stage of our careers we are? How do you find this generational gap different when you're mentoring someone? So Nolan, you want to start with that?
Sure. I'm not sure if this is the answer folks will expect, but I don't put a whole lot of credence in the concept that generations are so different in terms of kind of what they need or what they desire. I'm in my mid-50s. I remember very vividly what it was like to be early in my career and kind of clueless about things. And, you know, what I needed then was guidance on how to be a professional, right? What it meant to work hard, how to communicate effectively, right? If you're in your, let's just say mid-20s, you need the same thing. Just because you might be more adept at certain technologies, right, or grew up with a phone in your hand, doesn't mean that you still don't need those things, right? Likewise, you know, when you're a good, solid individual contributor and you're trying to move into a leadership role, or like I just shared, a senior leadership role, you need the same sort of coaching and guidance. Like, what does it take to get there? How do you need to brand yourself, right, so that you can sell yourself to that next level of career advancement, whatever it may be. So I just try to kind of find out where the mentee is and understand what they're trying to achieve. And just, you know, I don't really care how old or how young they are. That said, I will say that one seemingly generational difference that kind of frustrates the heck out of me is we all have all sorts of ways that we communicate with each other professionally, right? It could be Teams chats, emails, Slacks, texts, you name it. That's great until the challenge isn't being solved. And then I have to almost yell sometimes through a Teams message in all caps, pick up the phone and talk to someone, right? So it's not just a younger generation thing, but it does tend to happen with them. And sometimes you just need to reinforce that you can get a whole lot more accomplished in a conversation than you can with the typed out word.
I do think that conversation is very well missed, especially post-COVID, right? So I agree. So Scott, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Robert, I think I agree with a lot of what Nolan said. Really, it's not necessarily about age or about, you know, where you're at in your particular career, but it definitely, you do have to acknowledge that there are multiple generations in the workforce, and so I think it really comes back to the core of communications and being effective at communications. And so for me, I think the enduring principles of communications being clear, concise, correct, concrete, confident, coherent, and courteous, I think are going to be effective regardless of what generation you're dealing with, so that your communications are effective and are able to kind of cut across the generational divides. I also do believe that because a lot of digital natives are in the workforce today, right, where we might not have started out as being as digitally native as the new generations, you have to deliver messages to your team and manage your team using a multi-channel framework, using digital means, using in-person and large group or focus group meetings. And I also think you have to practice a feedback loop, really. You have to get feedback from the folks on your team. That feedback might come in different ways based on the generation that's giving it to you, but you can cater your message based on what that feedback is that you get from the team.
So being open as a mentor, also to know what feedback you're getting, so you can
Absolutely
roll with that. It's great, both of you guys. Thank you. So before we continue, I just life comes as it grows, right? Mike Tyson always said, everyone has a plan till you get punched in the face, right? So with that, I just want to bring Phil to the screen with us. Phil, welcome.
Nice to meet you.
So Phil, welcome to the show today, Phil, and thank you for coming here, Phil, and I appreciate what you're going through today. But so Phil Dundas is the Chief Technology Officer of a leading investment firm in New York area. Phil's not only runs technology, but data and strategy, including software engineering, agile delivery, architecture, data engineering, analytics, data science, production support, product management, business analysts, infrastructure. Phil's got a lot going on. He's also previously held leadership roles at Schroders Investment Management. I don't know this name, Phil. I'm sorry. Marquis Group?
Macquarie.
Macquarie, thank you.
An Australian
Sounds
name.
better with your accent anyway. I could say the Coca-Cola one, the 𝗦𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗶𝗽 Financial Group, all in New York, Philadelphia, and some other place called Sydney. But Phil, welcome.
Great to be here. Thanks very much for having us, Robert. And again, like you said, life dealt me some punches I wasn't quite anticipating today. So, but I'm here now, and it's great to be here.
Well, I appreciate it here. And Phil, just, we start, I will bring it back to the beginning real quick, but I do want just your thoughts real quick on what do you get out of being a mentor?
I think as much as I know that those who I've mentored have actually, said how much they appreciate it, I feel like I get as much as they often, say that they do as well. So for me, it's all about just being able to build rapport, build trust in a relationship with folks, and really be able to explore how you can help one another. Obviously, the mentee's looking for some assistance, but as I said, I think being a mentor affords you an opportunity to hear from others what's going on for them, and seeing how you can apply that to your own experiences as well. So it's all about sharing. It's all about relationship, and really just building a rapport and trusting one another, and figuring out how you can mutually support one another.
Phil, thanks. And we haven't hit on that word yet, right? And the first show we did here, Richard Bliss said 2024 is a year of trust. And having trust is really critical to being a mentor and that mentor-mentee relationship. I don't know how to explain it, but if without that, there is no relationship, and it doesn't make it past that first meeting. So we just got off, Phil, that generational divide, with new technology, people going hybrid, people remote. But regardless, and Nolan, you should come to and inspire me one day. I can't walk in a room without giving Phil and Scott a hug, let alone picking up the phone and talking to him, right? But how do you build trust in these relationships, and how do you establish that trust so quickly? So, for me, it's all about being authentic. But what are you guys doing? And Phil, I'm going to ask you to take this question first. But how do you build trust with the person you're mentoring?
Well, so a few things. First of all, I think that you need to come across as reasonable and relatable, and somebody that people can feel as though they can build a relationship with. So you need to be somebody who they have a connection with, undoubtedly. But trust comes about from a number of things. One of the things that I've spent some time on researching a few years ago was what they call the trust equation, which is the combination of reliability, credibility, and availability, and making sure that those things come together to actually, when you can present those three things, then you're actually somebody that feels as though they can trust. And so the combination of those is really what makes somebody feel as though that you're in a relationship, somebody that you've got a high quality of integrity, and that there's somebody that can rely upon. So your credibility will come about it from your expertise and your background and so forth. But really, that intimacy that is required, that takes time to develop. You can't rush an intimate relationship, and so I think that you can foster it and you can do things that will accelerate it, but some just take time to develop. And so that's why a mentoring relationship, you know, in its first days and weeks and months, it will feel a little maybe awkward and uncomfortable as you just get to know one another. But that's the whole, you know, with any relationship that is the case. But there are things that you can do to accelerate that along. And I think, you know, being open, being transparent, and sharing maybe some areas that you've had difficulties and some stories, you know, scars from the battlefield is always a good way of showing, hey, you're a relatable person as well. You're not above and beyond the person that you're mentoring, and that you're somebody that they can feel a real connection with.
Yeah, I agree, Phil. I think like two words that I'd add as well to what you had said, which is one is authentic, being authentic, and the second is being vulnerable. It's okay as a mentor to not be the know-it-all in the room, and to explore situations together with your mentee, not saying that, hey, I've always experienced what you're experiencing, or I have you know, something that an age of wisdom that I want to impart upon you. I think trust comes from that vulnerability to be able to explore with your mentee together what they're experiencing and what you may be experiencing as well.
Yep. And I'll second that, Scott. Right, there are multiple times where mentees ask me a question or presenting a challenge to me, and what should I do? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's figure this out together. You know. The other thing that I have learned to do as I've been a mentor more often is to kind of hit the topic of trust right out of the gate, and kind of say like, hey, we need to have, we'll establish it, right? You have to earn it, but we have to go into this thinking that we can trust each other, and let's set some boundaries, right? And so I very early and very clearly will say, anything you tell me here is confidential. And I'm not going to take anything that you share, anything outside of here, certainly not to anybody in your line of reporting, unless you and I discuss it first and we agree on how I'm going to share it, why I'm going to share it, and that sort of thing. And then I also kind of put it back to the mentee and say, I need you to determine how much you want to share with me, right? Because my belief is that to be really effective in this relationship, you need to go beyond the strictly professional, right? People don't turn their lives off when they leave the office at the end of the day. And so I'll go as far as they want to take it, right, in terms of their personal life, because that does impact your professional life and vice versa. Now, that doesn't mean I want to be a life coach or a marriage counselor or anything like that. But to the extent that they want to share and that impacts, where do they want to go with their career, right? That gets to their motivations. And I think it's good to kind of, ease your way there, but to set the groundwork where it's okay. You don't have to feel uncomfortable if you want to share something outside of your work life.
Guys, I have to tell you, and Nolan, thank you. The three of you, those were great. But I raced my mind through all the years of mentoring people and being mentored. And I remember my first mentor I never listened to after going to Tony Robbins and Walking the Fire and learning what a coach was. And my mentor said, don't do anything after you learn this. As a lifelong mentor, lifelong learner, I want to do things right away. And I didn't listen to him. I just applied everything right away. And I should have listened to my mentor. I didn't. But the availability, being available, I've always been available. My mentors have always been available to me, but I've never said that out loud. But it's so, I've heard everything before. I've never actually heard that. And it's so critical to be available to the people who are mentoring, because if you're not, and then when they need you the most, then what, right? So what happens if somebody needs you and you're not there? So listen, guys, that was great, and I appreciate it. So then what, right? What happens as you're working with your mentors and they start to develop, and how do they now get the confidence, and how do you transition not away from them? Because I think that's a lifelong relationship. Scott, you talked about yours earlier. They want to start mentoring people. Now they're coming to you asking you different questions, right? How do you help them transition to being mentors? So, Scott, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think it's really starting with that everyone has something that they can offer, regardless of whether or not they're hierarchically, above a person's position or level in an organization, or the amount of time that they've had in their career. Everyone has had something that they can offer, and I think if you start from that principle with your mentee who wants to transition into being a mentor, I think you're on the right starting point, and then taking it from there, offering them the thoughts that you have around being authentic, about being genuine, and gaining trust. I think those are really clear foundations and bedrock of being a mentor. I think it also encouraged them to be a mentor, because it really is about, once you've scaled the wall, or once you've gotten to a point on the wall, looking back and grabbing the hand of that person who needs to climb it with you, and helping them up along the way. And I think that's really important for all of us to do, regardless of where we're at on that wall.
I love that, and fighting that imposter syndrome, thinking they can't, right? So that's great, Scott. Nolan, how about you on this one? How do you help them get their confidence to give back?
Yeah, it's not much different than what Scott just discussed. It's, you've worked with them for a while, and hopefully they've built their confidence, and you just have to kind of impress upon them, like, hey, you're good at this. You're either being asked by, to participate in a program, or you're developing a relationship and somebody is thinking that, hey, you have something to offer folks that need to be mentored. Be confident and just be trusting in yourself that you do have something good to offer, right? And above all else, just be genuine, right? And like the comment I had earlier, if you don't know, it's okay to say, I don't know, but we can talk this through and figure it out together.
I love that.
I really like that point that Noel just made around just be genuine, be authentic, because nobody's perfect. And I think a great question Michael just asked, Scott, I know that he directed it at you, but I'm just going to jump in on that one, is right. How do you actually mentor when somebody's got, when you're feeling like you haven't got a whole lot of drive or energy at that particular moment in time? I think it's a really, really good question. And the way that I would respond to that is, first of all, be open and transparent with the person you're mentoring around the way that you feel. Nobody's perfect. And I think the more that you can break down the barriers to demonstrate that you're a relatable human being and you go through challenges like they may be going through, first of all, gives them the confidence, oh, this person is more relatable. They're not perfect, and I'm not going to put them on a pedestal. And secondly, I think it sets their own expectations that if they are then going to transition into being a mentor themselves, it's okay to, you're not going to have all of the answers. It's all about progress, not perfection. And being able to be available to somebody as a mentor means that you're bringing your whole self, which may not be all the most desirable things about you, but you actually, you're bringing your strengths and your weaknesses to that relationship as well.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Michael's question is great. Scott, can you weigh in on that if you don't mind?
Yeah, I mean, Phil's comments are right on track, right? Be upfront about how you're feeling, with your mentee. But I can't tell you how many times it's happened to me where, there's that calendar item that I have with someone who's a mentee of mine, and I've had a tough time for that day, and I'm just not feeling it, but I commit to it because of that trust, right? Because of that, that this person's relying on me. Maybe they're having a really tough time and they need me. And on more than a number of occasions, what's transpired is that I got a ton more energy out of having kept that commitment, having had that dialogue, and having that inspiration, that it actually rejuvenated the week for me. So I've been incredibly surprised by that. So now I make it a rule that regardless of, what kind of week I'm having, I try not to push the event. Now, obviously things happen, and sometimes you just can't make an event. If your boss is on the line and they need you and there's a crisis happening, you just can't commit. But be upfront and say you can't make it and why you can't make it. But if there's an opportunity where you can, I'd say just go for it. You'd be surprised.
I agree with that, Scott. It's like going to the gym. It's one of those things you think you may not have the energy to, but once you've actually started and you're working out, and at the end of it, it's like, well, I'm really glad that I did this. And that's always been my experience. Like you said, it pops up in this calendar. It's like, oh, I can't bring this person anything, but I'm going to show up anyway. but by the end of the session, it's actually been really beneficial, whatever the case.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to the gym today, but Nolan, how about you? Where are you getting your energy from on a day like that?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. I think Scott and Phil covered that pretty well, but I will say that I think it was Phil that just mentioned it. There's sometimes things come up, right? Like your calendar gets taken over by something else, and you have to attend that. I'm guilty of not doing this all the time, but as the mentor, if you have to cancel that session, it should really be the onus is on you to reschedule it. Like, don't just say, hey, can't make it. Can you look for time on my calendar? My calendar is a mess, right? I'm just asking someone to do the impossible or push it out by a month, right? That neither of those is good. So if you can't make it, you need to own it and find the time to do it as soon as you can.
I have to tell you, I had no energy after chasing eclipses around the East Coast along the United States today. I'm happy I came here today because this gives me tremendous energy. So Patty threw out here, I think it's critical to find what kind of mentor is: career navigation, sounding board for ideas, direction, work, confidence, advocate, champion, right? But we talked about it a little bit earlier, right? So what the person in your life and the role you play for them, and whether it's professional, personal, you know, we don't train for this, right? This is not what we went to school for, and we don't come up and you know, Nolan, it's nice to have you here from a different perspective than a couple of old IT guys, right, sitting around here that might have grown up, you know, running Wang VS cables behind the Wang VS 300, which no one on this call probably remembers what that is. But with that said, you know, how do you prepare for this, and how do you prepare for what type of mentor you're going to be, and when do you know to pass someone off to someone else, that can do that? You know, Patty brings up a good point. What you know, what prepares you to be a mentor, and how do you know that you can actually help that person and have the confidence to say, maybe, you know, my friend Nolan can help you because you want to have a better role in as a CRO someday, you know? So, you know, Phil, how do you approach those types of conversations?
So I'm not quite sure I quite understand the question, Robert.
Well, first, how did you prepare for being a mentor, and, you know, where do you get that from, and how do you decide if someone who you're mentoring might be better off with another mentor? And guys, we didn't prepare for this one, by the way, I know, but Patty brought up a great question.
I think first of all, it's about setting expectations with both yourself and the other partner as to exactly what you think you can bring to the table, and what, you know, where you think your strengths might be, but also being transparent around where you may not be as strong, but you're happy to have the conversation with them, and then seeing how the relationship pans out, and then deciding whether it makes sense to pivot and recommend that they go to somebody else, or that you seek out somebody else. So I think it's just being around, being constant. I mean, that comes down to that trust as well. You know, establishing that rapport as early on as you can, being willing to be open and honest, and just, you know, being willing to pivot as things go on. But I think in all things, every relationship takes time, and I think you don't want to judge too quickly. Is this person appropriate for me, either as a mentor or as a mentee?
Great point. Scott, you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it really is a great question. When I think about, you know, I've had it occur where, you know, I've had a person who really, you know, came and wanted to have, you know, a mentoring relationship, and, you know, the problems were so complex that really I knew that this wasn't something where I could add value, or that I could give something back that person could benefit from. And I think it's okay to step away from a mentoring relationship that, you know, you're in over your head. But, you know, and not try to be someone that you're not. You know, I'm not classically trained as a psychologist, or I'm not classically trained as you know, a career counselor. And when someone needs that level of expertise, I think it's okay to admit that and say, look, I'm just not going to be able to be in this relationship, and step away.
Good. Nolan?
Yep. I think two parts to this answer. The first is, you know, what prepared us to be mentors. Nothing prepares you to be a mentor, right? It's kind of like being a parent. You just are one. It happens one day. And when I think back about the first couple of people that I acted as a mentor towards, I don't think I did as best as I could, but probably would have been a better experience for them, you know, all these years later, with more of that under my belt. In terms of, when the relationship comes to an end, I think somebody said before, they don't really end, but there are definitely different types of mentorship. Some you just know are going to persist, and they might fade away for a little while, then come back a few months down the road, and that's great. There are others that are very much kind of objective or goal defined. Like, I'm mentoring someone because they have a very specific thing that they're trying to achieve, and they're having a challenge getting there. And when we get there, at a certain point, I'll say like, "Hey, I'm in this for the long term, but this is for you. So if you want to cut back how often we meet, or just stop meeting altogether, or like, I'm going to leave that to the mentee to figure out if and how they want to go forward, right? And some of them we've remained friends, but the mentoring part has really just kind of faded away."
And I love Patty's comment here, and also specifically to drop the ego, right? There's no ego in any mentor-mentee relationship. You have to really check that out the door. So with that, guys, as we're coming near the end of our show, I just want to go around real quick, and I do like people to come away with something. We came with a lot of great stuff here today, tremendous amount of stuff, especially show up, right? But what can we leave anyone who's, and going with the concept, it doesn't matter whether you're mentoring across, mentoring up, mentoring down, influencing, right? We're here to help people get unstuck, right? Or to help people grow and to help people be something else, because we can't do it alone, right? We have our groups that we're part of, right? We have our families, we have our friends. What one thing or two things do you want to leave people with that keep in mind if you want to be a mentor or you want to give all of yourself? What are your key takeaways that you can leave our audience with as a mentor you would give people this type of advice, if you have anything? And then if you don't mind also sharing, how can people get in touch with you if you want, whether it's LinkedIn or another way? Please share that with us. And Nolan, do you mind going first?
Sure. So I think my takeaways, I've said a couple of times, you have to be genuine, you have to be yourself. That's the biggest one. Because if you're authentic, that will shine through. You'll develop that trust, all the things that we talked about. And then just be confident in the fact that you're being asked by someone, whether it's your company or whether it's an individual, to help mentor themselves or somebody else. And rely on your experiences, right? Draw from them, be open and honest, and I think you'll find your way. The last thing I'd say is, if you don't inherently get value out of helping other people succeed, and there's nothing wrong if that's not the sort of person you are, don't be a mentor, because what you will find is it's just going to exhaust you. Mm-hmm. Right? If you don't get energy out of that, it's probably not the right role for you, and that's okay too.
Perfect. Well, you want everyone to be successful, all right? That's why we do this. So Scott, how about you?
Yeah, so I'll start with anyone who wants to get in contact with me, just hit me up on LinkedIn. Happy to message me and happy to have a conversation with you, or even be your mentor. But what I would say is, my hope is that people take away that, I brought up that image of the wall, right? The wall of life's experiences and career experiences, personal experiences. And we're all at different places on that wall. That wall, never ends. And so where you are, take a look back behind you and say, maybe I've gotten to a different height on that wall, and there's a lot of others who are trying to get to that same place. How do I help them get the benefit of the wisdom or the experiences that I've had? And how do I do it in a way where I don't appear like a know-it-all, or I don't appear like I'm hierarchically literate? How do I, employ or impart those career experiences or those bits of wisdom without appearing like, I'm someone who's in command and control of everything in my life? And I think that's about what makes you authentic as a leader, and makes you authentic as a mentor. If you can pull somebody up without having them know or believe that you're, much more experienced than they are, I think you're doing a good job as a mentor.
Pull someone up. I love that. And you are.
Rob, if I could just jump in here. Sorry, please contact me through LinkedIn as well. I forgot to add that.
And you're all tagged, by the way, in the post. So, but Phil, LinkedIn too, by the way, Phil?
LinkedIn's perfect. So although I go by the name my mother gave me, Philip Dundas, not Phil Dundas. So if you're looking me up, you may not find me unless you look up my longer name. So, so two things that I would take away from this. First of all, is that mentoring is available for everybody. This is not something that I think there should be barriers that people feel like I've got to be a certain level of a certain age or a certain level of seniority or a certain role in my company or whatever it may be to either be mentored or to be a mentee. I think there's nothing, it's not above anybody or beneath anybody to do either of those. So, and if people, even they're very, very seasoned in their careers and in their lives, often still go out and seek out mentoring to get guidance. It never hurts to have the perspective of another person to help guide you along life's paths. And similarly, don't feel as though you're too young or you're too junior to actually be able to provide and help for another person. So that would be the first thing. The second thing that I would say is that the things that we've been talking about today about being authentic, building rapport, building trust, those rules they're cross-generational, they're cross-functional, they are cross-cultural, they are universal. And building and being able to be somebody who is relatable, that somebody can trust, that they can, like I said before, that you can be credible, you can be available, you can be intimate, you can can show up as your true authentic self. Those are the things that will build trust. And again, there's no barriers to those. So yeah, be available to be a mentor, but don't ever be afraid to put your hand up and say, "Hey, I might need some help with this. I'd like to seek out a mentor myself."
Thank you. And guys, I trust that you have my appreciation for doing this, and your guidance and support for this was truly appreciated. So thank you guys. I appreciate you being here today and sharing a piece of you with everybody else. And hopefully we've shared enough where people will either help their mentors, come be a mentor, and remember that goes across and beyond. And we just lost Scott, but hopefully he's in the green room for us. So we come back in a few weeks. We're going to have a couple of titans of sports. We'll have some people from basketball, some football, some from professional hockey and baseball. We're going to talk about physical and cybersecurity and leadership through that. But this was a great show for me, guys, personally, and I love being a mentor, and I still stay in touch with my longtime mentors as well. So, and thank you guys for being here, and we'll talk soon. But thanks everyone for watching. Our next shows in a couple weeks, and we'll see everyone soon. So thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining Leading in the Digital Era, hosted by Robert Field. Look for more Leading in the Digital Era, presented by the Institute for Digital Transformation, coming to a LinkedIn Live session soon. Can't join Robert for the live session? You can catch the replay anytime on our YouTube channel.